I'm allergic to the words spirituality, abundance, compassion, love. They don't make any sense to me. They don't make sense to me because I look at these words as an orange tree that has given birth to 1,000 oranges. When you look at them, they're all green, they're all hard, they're not edible, but they have to be on this tree for 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 months to be nourished by the roots, by the trunk, by branches, all those things. And then they get orange, and then they become ripe. And then when you look at them, they just fall. If you're looking at such words, love, abundance, compassion, forgiveness, as fruits, that you imagine that you want to have them, but to have these fruits, first there needs to be a seed. That seed must have sprouted. It must have roots now. There must be a trunk, there must be branches, there must be air, there must be warmth, there must be all sorts of things that go in helping this fruit ripen. When you talk about love, I don't know what that is. I don't know how it's produced. I don't know how it's protected. I don't know how it's nourished. When you talk about forgiveness, when you talk about, well, that's your stuff, I'm not going to carry it, but I'll be by your side. I think it's a great, great, great idea. Is it applicable? Is it practical? Probably not. But regardless of what I have said, let me also add this particular footnote. I think if certain ideas work for people, like medicine, they should hold them very close and dear to themselves. Don't allow Socrates to walk into your life and destroy your concept of love that has kept you and your husband together for 50 years. If the idea of love, abundance, forgiveness, compassion, if they have worked for you, and if they have kept you afloat, if they have kept you from depression, from anger, from confusion, frustration, that could be paralyzing emotionally, intellectually, physically even. If they have done magic for you, keep them. There's nothing wrong with that. You know, the Greeks have they have 8 different words for love. Sometimes you love someone because they're just physically attractive. And out of that physical connection, eventually love grows. But it's anchored in someone's body. Then you have a certain love for friendships. Then you have certain loves for teachers, for siblings, for parents. Then you have certain loves that are just categorized for lust. You love lust. And then there is this category of love they call agape, that is profoundly spiritual. But it's very, very difficult to attain and to possess. You know, the Western world has only love. What the hell is that? And it's an amusing thing when someone says, I love pizza, and I love my country, and I love football, and I love Spider-Man. So, well, I don't understand, how could you love all these things? It doesn't make sense. You know, and if you want to even make it a bit more complicated, let me go to the Gospels, where he argues that you can't really love 2 masters at the same time. It's impossible. You can love one thing, and then you can like other things. And in liking other things, there's also going to be dislike in the like. There's also you're going to have components of hatred in the like. You will not love them. You will like them, but also hate them. You know, English really is not the proper language to discuss humanities. It's like falling in love with a robot. You know, it just doesn't work. And I think you need to have come from a culture that has come to realize that there are these insufficiencies in words, and you need to generate different words that mean different things, you know, that are connected to perhaps the same emotion but in a different way. And I guess the reason I say it in this particular way is there are stages to everything. Nothing just grows. It's kind of like the saying in one of the Gospels that, you know, this room is built on bricks. And if you look at the bricks, you realize the first one holds the second one. The first and the second holds the third one. You can't just all of a sudden just put the 5th one on there. It's not going to stand on anything. You can certainly be attracted to things, but you could be attracted to someone's body. You can be attracted to someone's emotions. But emotions themselves become tricky because someone could have oppressive tendencies, and you may have some messiah complex about you. Maybe you're just a number 2, which is a helper, that you just look for people who are broken so you can fix them. That's how you connect, that's how you find meaning. And there's nothing wrong with that, by the way. but you're not going to find validation in being around people who are healthy. Now, if you're Jesus Christ, you are looking for people who are spiritually unhealthy. And that means the following, that they have money in their pocket, they have love for their parents and their kids and their wives and their society, and they have read the Talmud, they have read the dialogues of Plato. So body, mind, and emotions, they're really, really quite healthy and complete. But they feel as if something is missing, and that's the spiritual part. And you realize that all of us in this class are looking like a vulture. You look down and you say, okay, right now I am only hungry for people who look good. And you do this unconsciously. You're not really aware of this, but you realize you only gravitate towards people who are physically attractive. And out of that physical attraction, love grows. But it is out of the roots of physical attraction. Then you find someone or a different category of people where you want to find people who are not physically attractive, but emotionally attractive. I'm not talking about like profound, substantive emotional attractiveness. I'm talking about people who are just broken in various ways, where you want to play the therapist. And out of someone's depressing moods, as you hang out with them more, and eventually perhaps your bodies connect in an intimate way, love grows. So this particular love really has roots in you finding someone who's just broken by life and is unable to fix themselves, so you're there as a Messiah to fix them. And then you realize that, well, no, you don't want the first one, you don't want the second one, you don't want the physical or the emotional. You're looking for someone who thinks well. So you YouTube people like Jordan Peterson or some ridiculous teacher out there, okay? And the sharper your own intellect is, the sharper or the more intense your desire to understand, you're going to bypass Eckhart Tolle and Sadhguru, and you could probably going to gravitate towards Jordan Peterson, who's been in the classroom for a while, who's been a therapist for a while, and has a lot of clients, so he's had no choice but to unpack various human dilemmas for his clients. And so you gravitate towards him. Now that becomes your intimacy with someone's intellect, and out of that love grows. Then you realize, no, you've been in all three different worlds. You've loved someone because of the way they look, it's short-lived. You've loved someone because they're broken, you try to fix them only to realize people just don't change. They just move from one addiction to another, from one aspect of possessiveness to another, from one compulsion to another, and then you walk away. Then you fall in love with someone's intellect, the way they speak, the way they unpack things. And when a famine hits, and the famine means no one can reach you physically, no one can reach you emotionally, no one can reach you intellectually. You have lost those abilities. Now comes your spiritual journey. And you're not looking for someone to give you information. You know the information yourself. You're looking for a very specific, unique kind of feeling. I'm not sure what that is. And I'm not sure how you experience that. And it's one of those magical things that's best to be left alone. To kind of explain this a little bit, there are two books that some of you in this class may be interested in. One is called Daughter of Fire by Irina Tweedy. She is told that there is a teacher in India, that she should go from London to India to kind of run into the sky and see if he has anything to teach her. The very first moment that she runs into him, she wants to scream and she wants to shout. She says, I don't know why, but I've come home. How do you explain this? You don't. Now, a lot of us in this class have had those moments when you fall in love with someone's body, or you just spend time with them, and you say, I have found home. And then you realize they're insufficient, and the relationship is insufficient. And then you realize what Rumi said, عشق های کس به رنگی بود، عشق نبود، عاقبت ننگی بود. Sometimes you just love colors. You love someone's eyes, you love someone's nose, you love someone's mind, and these are colors. Just leave them outside in the sun and the rain and the snow. And after 2 months, the color will fade. And when the color fades, your love will fade. And you'll feel abandoned, betrayed, empty, all those things. And what you realize in the next 800 pages of the book, Daughter of Fire, is she's trying to understand the interaction between herself and this teacher. He's taken her money, he's taken her mind, he's taken her heart. There is nothing that belongs to her. everything that she has belongs to him, everything. And then when he dies, she's devastated. And it takes her 10 years to kind of sit and begin to write. Because every time she would grab the pen, she would want to write, a tsunami of emotions would hit her and she would feel paralyzed. The next book is In Search of the Miraculous. It's by P.D. Auspensky, a Russian guy who runs into an Armenian teacher, Gurdjieff. And the problem with Auspensky was that he was a journalist, he was an author, he had read tons of books, traveled to great many lands, had seen a lot of religious and philosophical schools. And someone tells him about Gurdjieff. And for Auspensky, because, he'd been there, he'd done that, he said, well, okay, this is just another guy I'm going to run into, is probably going to be a fake. In just a couple of minutes, everything about the way Auspensky thinks about this man changes. And he devotes I think, maybe 4 or 5 years, maybe 2 years, I'm not quite sure how long he stayed. And one of the differences between men students and women students is that men students oftentimes have a tendency of bad-mouthing their teacher, backstabbing them, ultimately coming to realize that they're insufficient. That's what men do. And part of it is biology, psychology. Women, on the other hand, they remain devoted for a long time. Women work with feelings and emotions, and those feelings and emotions last for almost the entire lifetime. Men, their emotions come to the surface for maybe a year, maybe 2 years, maybe 3 years, and then the intellect comes down and it destroys everything that was created. And the point I'm trying to make is that you have these uneasy, mysterious feelings upon meeting a teacher. Now, everyone can be inspired by Malcolm X, no doubt, but it takes a very unique student to wait for Malcolm X, to follow him home, to sit by his doorstep, and to knock on his door every single day, to be invited in, to have tea, and to ask questions for the next 20 years. This is more than inspiration. They have found their paradise down here. They have found Malcolm X as their God down here. They fall in love with Malcolm, and in falling in love, little by little, your history disappears. Your desires disappear. Your pursuits disappear. And you adopt all the desires of your teacher. If your teacher wants water, you say, I'll go get water. This is not something that people ordinarily do, especially in this culture, where those narratives are absent. So those were the emotions I was talking about. Now, one of the things you need to understand about the spiritual quest, if you want to call it that, always go back to the Gospels, the 4 Gospels. What you realize is you have 12 disciples, supposedly, that this man Jesus had. All that Jesus could do really for them is to create intense emotions, and they love those emotions. And because the disciples were in love with the emotions created for them and in them by Jesus, they were fully devoted. Until, of course, came time for the real stuff. When Jesus asked them to actually bring the ideas down and apply them, they all had to reject it. It was too much. So you can be spiritual only in emotions, but not spiritual in thinking, and certainly not spiritual in acting. You could feel spiritually, but not think spiritually. And when you feel spiritually means there's a lot of things you don't really understand, you haven't unpacked, but you have the feelings, but they're not sufficient. They're not sufficient to govern the way you think about things. They're not sufficient for the way you behave physically in your life. And there is also a difference between feeling spiritually, thinking spiritually, and being spiritual. When you are spiritual, and I'm not really quite sure what that exactly means, but the best example I can give is the Taoist version. And the simplest example I can use is you run into someone, you like them, after 2 weeks you love them, and you guys grab a cup of coffee from Pete's and you go to Rose Garden in Berkeley and you sit on the bench and you watch the sunset. And your shoulders are touching and you just feel full. There is no need for language. There is no need for sex. There is no need for dialogue. You just sit. And your companion all of a sudden says, I am really, really hungry. And you say, okay, what do you want to eat? Pizza. Now, the problem with having pizza for you is that you're allergic to tomatoes. It can kill you. And you say, pizza sounds really, really good. You're full, you're in the Garden of Eden. You're not scared of death. You're not scared of sickness. that this particular very unique place of emptiness allows you to govern yourself without feeling and thinking. You're just moved by this particular space and all that it contains. I'm not sure what it is. But certainly it's good to have the feelings, but it's insufficient because it can drive you mad. I think feelings are strong enough to kind of guide you, guide your intellect and guide your body to kind of go from point A to point B simply because you want to have those feelings, and that's your initiation, the rite of passage. The first thing that needs to happen, you don't need to understand. Understanding is much, much later. The first thing you need to do is feel. I'm not just talking about a feeling that comes and goes. I'm talking about a feeling that evolves into this thing called love, not eros and not philo. Talking about agape. In other words, you look at someone and you say, the qualities I've been looking for, let's say in Socrates, in Malcolm, in Jesus, it seems that they all live in that person. And all of a sudden you have three things in your life. You have Malcolm, you have Gandhi, and you have Socrates. When the pastor talks, for example, you see all those things in him. And all of a sudden he brings those people out of their tomb. Now, that is what you need initially. Lots of intense feelings. The problem with intense feelings, if you already don't know, is that this is your life. Your life has the power to kind of make you into a sleepwalker. You just react to things and you just pursue things and you buy advertisements and you consume them. That's what you do. That's what life offers you, and you have no choice but to go with those offers. Malcolm pushes you in the direction opposite to life. Do not be a consumer of things physical, emotional, intellectual. Be a consumer of what I give you. And what Malcolm gives goes against life. And so the problem is feeling intensely for Malcolm is that Malcolm pushes you against the current of life. And now that creates conflict. Your wife wants to have a good time. You, on the other hand, you want to say to your wife, let's sit and read a book. Book? I've been taking the kids for 20 hours. I want to go out and have a good time. You say no. Your kids want to hang out. You say, no, let's go to Yosemite. What's there? It can be in nature. I don't want to be in nature. And it's going to take you a long, long time because you need to understand philosophy, this kind of philosophy, will never go with life, but always in opposition to life.